Right, everyone, I think we'll make a start. So this is Jason Thompson coming to you and speaking to you across 5 different time zones according to this list I have here. We have 9 o'clock in West Coast Australia, 11 a.m. in Queensland, 11:30 a.m. in South Australia, midday in NSW and Victoria, and 2 o'clock in New Zealand where I'm based. So we've got a good range there right across the day. Firstly, thank you very much for getting on board and joining us today. So we've got 3 presentations from people. We've got Annette from Macquarie, we've got Mike from Otago, and we've got Ben from Uni of South Australia. And basically, these short presentations are going to be giving a little bit of information from people about their experiences at IGeLU this year, and also the Developers Day. And feedback I've had, I mean, I didn't go this year myself, but feedback I've had is it was a very good conference. So I'm looking forward to these. So what we'll do is we'll go through the presentations. I'll be handing over to each person as they finish their presentation and go over to the next one. At the end of the presentations, there'll be an opportunity there for questions. We can do those either on the chat interface, which you should see in the control panel, or we can, liven up the microphones, which I've got muted at the moment, and we can ask questions that way. Okay. So we're also recording this webinar today. I've got one of my guys on my team will clean it up and put a title on it, and then we'll put it up on the ANZREG website, just so anyone who can't be here today will be able to view it themselves. So what I'm going to do is, hopefully this technology behaves itself. Annette, I'm just going to unmute your microphone. So, and then I'm going to give you control of the presentation. There we are, I've just done that now. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Annette.
Thanks, Jason. Well, welcome everybody. I hope this is going to be interesting for you. When I went to Budapest, well, firstly, let me get started first. I'll give you that to look at while I talk. Budapest is a lovely, lovely town. When I went to Budapest, I knew I was going to have to do a presentation, so I took lots of notes. And when I came back, I looked at my notes and I went, the one thing that I can see in all of my notes is lots and lots of figures. So I'm going to hit you with some figures today, because what I think the figures do is give both you as an Exlibris customer a sense of where we are in their whole world, where APAC sits in relation to the rest of the IGeLU community as well, and just to put things in a bit of a context for you, as well as I just found the figures quite interesting, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, the opening session, Matti, the President and CEO of Exlibris, told us that since last IGeLU conference, 88 new customers had joined. There are now 3,487 cloud customers. Exlibris has 600 employees. There are 2,250 Primo sites and 540 Alma institutions. He said that they had had a 6.2% compound annual growth rate. It didn't mean anything to me at the time, but looking back, I now realise that's the sort of figure you put together when the company is up for sale. So anyway, we all know what's happened there. In 2014, APAC was 20% of Exlibris's customers, North America 35%, Europe 42%. And together the Alma and Primo products make up 68% of their business. There have been 170 new Primo customers since the last IGeLU, and there are now 100 plus Rosetta customers worldwide. The first version of Leganto is going to be ready for the 2015-16 academic year. And he also said that they overperformed the contractual service level agreement. 93% of customers achieved over 99.8% of availability. The future strategy which again I've put in quotes because we all know that things have happened since then, but they acquired Campus M. Was their view of the future at that point, pre-ProQuest. This little section was about global operations highlights, and it's about our support. So support is looking after 5,600 institutions. They handled 31,500 Salesforce cases in the first half of 2015. So I hope some of yours were some of those cases. I know I've certainly contributed to some of those. They also said they're supporting 14 different products and services. The global support staff, there are 27 in North America, 51 in headquarters, 12 for Europe, 4 in APAC, so a total of 94 support staff at Exlibris. The satisfaction levels, you all fill in those little surveys with the 4 smiley faces or not smiley faces. The North American satisfaction rate was 90%, Europe 89%, the rest of world 88%, and APAC was 83%. I sort of played a little bit with the faces and kind of fitted nicely into this. So I don't know what's going on in APAC, guys. Maybe we're a little bit critical, but I think we'd like to find out more information about why the APAC ratings are so low. I think that's something that's worthwhile following up. So the satisfaction by product then, Alma is 85%, Primo 84%. Interestingly, the more mature products, Aleph and Voyager, have got quite high satisfaction ratings, as you would expect. But, you know, Alma and Primo are not doing too bad. He then went on to talk about cloud. There are 3,665 SaaS or hosted institutions. There are 3 million daily Primo searches. That's pretty good. 1.4 million daily Alma transactions, and the uptime on Alma was 99.93% and Primo 99.92%. He then talked about the current knowledge base or knowledge landing page, whatever you refer to it as. It contains 12,890 articles, and there is access to that data outside of Salesforce, like through Google. He also mentioned that there's a new customer knowledge centre which is coming in November 2015, which is going to look like this, and it'll have a single sign-on and a consolidated search, so that's something to look forward to fairly soon. The next session that I thought I could report back on was the Alma product update, where we had sessions by both Bar and Devere. And Bar spoke first. He spoke about how Alma was no longer at the early adopters stage, but we've reached the early majority stage, which I thought was an interesting way to think of it. And then he made some lovely analogies that I'm going to share with you because I find them interesting, cute, whatever. He likened local hosting to being like a delivery of groceries. You still have to do all of the work before you can eat your meal. And he likened the SaaS environment to being the restaurant, where everything is managed for you. He then went on to further this restaurant analogy and talked about the Michelin star rating that I hope you've heard of, that restaurants get so many Michelin stars. And he wants Alma to get 3 stars, meaning it's worth the journey to go there. So the Michelin ratings are on things like the quality of products, the mastery of the flavour, the personality of the cuisine, the consistency of the presentation and the offering, and the value for money. So these are the things that you should be rating Alma by. I'm not going to talk about everything that he covered then. I'm just going to pick out a few of the things that he mentioned. First of all, he said the September release was Alma's 40th release. And there's a screenshot of what we've seen this year, with the last 2 the November and December releases coming, so you can see whose pictures we're going to get later on this year. He said there have been 1,650 new features since Alma started in July 2012. He spoke about there are usually 1 to 3 hotfixes a month, so when problems are identified with the software, they're fixed quickly. And what they're now concentrating on is improving the usability of Alma and the user experience. In 2016, we've got some new acquisitions models, APC and EBS coming, some mixed consortia models. They're looking at managing digital resources, and then also emerging or advanced metadata formats and benchmark analytics. So that's something to look forward to for next year. I thought this was interesting too. Exlibris staff also have to go through a certification process, an internal certification process. So that's nice to know that they have to go through it as well as us. Something else that's going to be coming soon is referred to as post-deployment expert services, where you can look at optimising, extending and analysing your Alma installation. Another interesting figure I thought was the Alma List currently has 2,119 subscribers, and there have been 7,000 more messages since the start of the list. Another program that they're looking at, which fits into the value for money aspect of your Michelin rating, is a program called Value on Investment, which is going to be staffed by Diane Baden and Carmet Marcus, where they will come to your library and produce an Alma value report for you. I think that's going to be a North American thing to start with though. They also mentioned the Idea Exchange, which you've probably heard about by now, but also stressed that NERS remains the only channel for roadmap commitment by Exlibris. De Vere then spoke and went on to continue with the analogy of the 5-star Michelin meal, and he talked about boosting collaborations, unified management, optimised workflows, the extendable platform and analytics. So I thought I'd put this slide of his up because it shows a very good Australian representation here in the top bibliographic contributors to the community zone. So well done guys, we've got 4 out of 7 top contributors. So thanks to those people. One of the boosting collaboration things that is going to come or has come is that the New Zealand National Library Maori subject headings have been recently added. There's more support for consortia coming with centralised acquisitions, joint negotiations, shared vendors and many more such developments coming. And with the unified management part there, they've announced that they're moving to cloud storage at Amazon S3, so that'll be coming soon too. Regarding the optimised workflows, is real-time acquisitions for YBP and Harasovitz, and coming soon is an integration with Amazon where you can search Amazon via Alma, see results in Alma and then create an order from those results directly. With the extendable platform, he spoke about the developer network and how at the launch in May 2014 there were 21 APIs and now there's around about 100. And currently there are 12 million API calls a month. That's a fairly impressive statistic as well, I think. With the analytics coming soon will be increased export capabilities, I believe. I hope I hear a cheer out there. Combined acquisitions, inventory usage, analysis capability and benchmark analytics. And in the longer term, they're going to be looking at title level and overlap analysis, extended counter support and predictive analysis. That's all I've got to say. I thought I'd leave you with this beautiful photo though, which is the one that all of the Exlibris presentations use. So I acknowledge that I use things from the Exlibris presentations here in my presentation. So thanks everyone.
Thanks, Annette. I really appreciate that. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hand over, Mike, I'm just going to turn the mute off your microphone, and we're going to swap you across as the presenter. And Annette, I'll just mute your microphone as well. Thank you. Okay, Mike, so I can see your screen.
Yep, is that better?
Yep, that looks good to me.
Okay. Hello, I'm Mike Scaaf. I'm a systems technician at University of Otago Library. This was my first IGeLU that I went to, and it was, yeah, I found it really interesting. My main takeaway was that there's a lot we can do to improve our situation by spending a bit of time developing around the APIs. It's also a good time for us to start looking more deeply in this area, as most of the APIs have now transitioned from SOAP to REST, with SOAP being a now deprecated format. And we've moved into more of a sort of business as usual situation here, so we've got a bit more free time to spend developing improvements. Up until recently, we haven't spent a great deal of time developing our own enhancements. There's exceptions, but yeah, for the most part, that's true. Most of our time has been spent problem solving, and this has been accomplished by working within Alma and Primo using the features that they offer. And if we weren't able to find a fix or a workaround, we'd typically log a job with Exlibris. This approach has some downsides. As you'll probably know, there's some limitations in Alma and Primo regarding what we can accomplish. And in some areas, while they're pretty configurable, in others, yeah, not so much. And once it gets to the point where we have to log a job with Exlibris, it's almost like you're admitting defeat. There's generally a pretty long wait between logging a job and seeing results, and especially if it's a feature request, it can go on a pretty long list of potential enhancements that get voted on, and it may never make the cut. At IGeLU, Exlibris was quite proud of the expansion of the APIs and how much customers are using them. Coverage has been increased up to 107 APIs, and yeah, they're planning on adding more. It's a strategy that makes sense to me. They've got a pretty diverse and capable customer base, and they can be quite vocal. They're happy to help each other out, but they also have quite specific needs at times. Because of this, it's next to impossible for Exlibris to make a one-size-fits-all solution, but that's what they've been trying to do with varying levels of success. Adding API access lets the customers build their own tools and features, and yeah, if they're not happy with what's provided out of the box, and the customer ends up happier than if the features aren't there, and it lowers the number of support calls and feature requests that Exlibris has to deal with. So yeah, it's a bit of a win-win. What does this mean for Otago? It's another way we can customize Alma and Primo. As I said, it's an area we haven't looked into much at this point, but yeah, there's definite gains that can be made. We can set our own timelines and priorities. If something's important to us and it's currently clunky or it just can't really be done in the configuration settings, then we can work on it now rather than wait for Exlibris. This, of course, assumes that the APIs for the changes we want to make are available. My ideas tend to be centered a bit around analytics, which is it's an area I'm pretty familiar with, and it would be good to hear from staff in other areas about some of their ideas. Even if it's more of a wish list and some of the ideas aren't possible, it would give a good indication of places they think that Alma and Primo can be improved. I mentioned earlier it's a good time to get in on APIs. Exlibris has been gradually updating their APIs from SOAP to REST. This means development in some areas has to be reworked to fit the new REST APIs. Our Polytech viral load is an example of this. It was built a year or so ago using SOAP, and it's currently in the process of being updated to REST. And API work is going to need some development time. Yeah, these things, they can be easy, they can be quite hard, and some things are still going to need to be logged with Exlibris. Some things that others are doing. University of South Australia has used APIs to pretty extensively modify Primo and how it interacts with other services. It looks like it would have taken quite a lot of work to get it all running, and it's pretty impressive. Going into what they've done is probably at least a couple of talks all by itself. But yeah, it's worth a look. Though I understand they're going through a little bit of pain at the moment with the APIs moving from SOAP to REST. KU Leuven has developed a jQuery library for Primo that they call the Missing Primo API. It makes extra information available at the front end, so you can use it for any modifications you want to make. And it also lets you log any of that information for analysis later on. And an online payment gateway for finds payment using PayPal was demoed at IGeLU, and example given on how you could do it. And there were some native library apps for mobile devices. There was a talk on an app that prints spine labels based on barcodes they're input, and a cut down, simplified version of the Alma Mark Editor. And a couple of people also mentioned that you can bypass the 65,000 row limit in Alma Analytics using API calls. So that's something I'd like to look into in the near future. Right, first a disclaimer. Most of my ideas here haven't been through any of the official channels, but they're things I'd like to look into, and some of them are definitely more realistic than others. We've got an issue with our schedule reports. As you can see in the, well, I assume you can see in the top left, the time run is listed at 6 PM on the 6th, but the email sent at 7 AM on the 7th. And then sometime between 8 AM and 9 AM on the 7th, the Alma Analytics load completes. At face value, it looks like even if we get the 30% speed improvement in the analytics load that Exlibris is promising, we still won't have the previous day's data from our scheduled Alma reports. It could be a time zone issue, and the automated time run information in the scheduled reports is wrong. But if it's accurate, we'll never get yesterday's data in a schedule report from Alma. So with this in mind, I've set up one schedule report that uses APIs inside an app I've made that runs on a Windows machine. And yeah, I plan to do a few more. It essentially just uses the Windows task scheduler to set when it's run, and it's pretty basic as far as apps go. But yeah, it grabs the report on whatever schedule we need, and currently it's set up for 9 AM, so we can ensure that yesterday's data is available for it. The Alma Analytics API provides an easy way to give access to non-Alma users, like give them access to reports by using a web page or a desktop shortcut. This would mainly be relevant at Otago for, say, managers or administration staff that typically don't really use Alma but need to keep track of things like usage statistics. The scheduled Alma reports work here to a point, but they don't. But if they want to see how things are tracking outside of the schedules, they have to ask someone to provide the data manually, and often it seems after an Alma update, the monthly reports seem to fail, so things have to be done manually there as well. And the permissions around who has access to what reports in Alma aren't very granular. So by doing it this way, we can, say, perhaps do IP authentication or set up something a bit more specific. And yeah, bypassing the 65,000 row limit in analytics. I've done this manually in the past by running multiple reports, and yeah, it's not the best way to do it. So it's fairly high on my list to get this sorted out. And yeah, this is despite Exlibris saying that analytics isn't supposed to be used to export data. Yoel's example of interactive reports was pretty interesting. You can use links in a report to pass information out to a page that you've built, which then uses that information to make an API call and make changes or list additional data, maybe talk to external tools or pages. And I'm assuming we'll be able to make use or we'll be able to use the APIs to access Primo Analytics in the same way once we get it enabled in our environment. Though, yeah, it'll be interesting to hear from some of the sites that already have access as to whether this here is available. So yeah, the ideas I've mentioned earlier will hopefully apply to Primo as well. It might be useful to set up an online fine payment gateway, though we've recently done away with our fines for regular items, so this one's probably pretty low on the list. And yeah, this last one's a little bit more out there, but I remember seeing somewhere that one of the APIs they were looking to open up was the run a job option in Alma. I can't find where I saw that though, so yeah, take it with a grain of salt. But if that happens, there's potential for some scheduled real-time reporting based off sets. We might also be able to use APIs to grab live data and build the reports manually. It'll probably be pretty tough to do, and investigations needed to figure out if it's even feasible. When fulfillment APIs are opened up, it should add a few extra possibilities in this area. And I haven't included this on the slides, but I'll be looking to automate some of our library hours workflows. Our current way of doing things is a little bit clunky, and there's definite improvements that can be made around the interface for adding hours. I'm told the setup within Alma isn't a very nice experience. Thanks for listening. That's all I have. Happy to answer questions after Ben's presentation.
Great, thanks, Mike. That was really good. Right, so I'm now going to Ben. I'm just going to take the mute off your microphone, and then I'll just see if we can change you as the presenter. So that should be coming across to you now.
Sounds good. Alrighty, let me sort this out. Slideshow. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Like Mike, this was my first IGeLU. However, unlike Annette, my notes were not so comprehensive, and it's my first week back from Europe, so a little bit of a short summary on the first IGeLU Developer Day. So, start off, the content structure worked well. I particularly liked the lightning talk format. It was a good type for this event, gave a brief insight into what people were doing without too much detail, just gives you nice overviews. However, the longer format talks were very informative, particularly from Mehmet from Exlibris and Nian from Macquarie. You're very encouraged to check those out from the IGeLU site. They're quite informative and have some really good ideas on how to use APIs and the Primo, jQuery Primo thing, which Exlibris were very excited about potentially including into the later Primo releases, which is great for Mehmet's work he's done. And whoops, wrong page. Exlibris was great to see them take part in the conference. It was very important to have them in the room, and it felt like they were more open in this environment compared to the main conference. It was good to be able to interact with them on a less formal level without that sales pitch kind of thing they usually come up with. Unfortunately, it could have been a bit more technical team on site to perhaps interact with, talk about with the developers, and hopefully next year we'll be able to get some more on board. The presentation from Ohad with the new Primo UI was impressive, and again, you're all encouraged to check out the new UI. It's a lot different from the new one, and I'm sure everyone will be impressed with what they see. For the next Developer Day, which I've been told is not going to be held on a Saturday, which is great news. Hopefully I'll be able to convince people to see me again. I think next time some more technical focused content would be welcomed. It was technical this time, however, I heard from a few people that some more hands-on kind of nerdier, I guess, content would also be welcomed. As I mentioned earlier, Exlibris' involvement was great, and the presence to see some more developers would be very valuable, and hopefully that will be something that we can put across to them. And also I thought maybe hands-on collaboration, doing some hacking between developers to try and overcome any problems we have could be a good way to break up a session, break off into teams, and maybe do some collaborative coding, brainstorming to try and see what we can come up with, help people with problems, etc. Would be a good opportunity during that conference. And as I said, very short and sweet. So thanks to Masad and Corey, even though they're not going to be listening. It wouldn't have been possible without them and their organisation, and obviously the interoperability and linked open data special working groups for all their work in that, and IGeLU of course, and special thanks to ANZREG for my grant and helping me get there, and a very special thanks to Dave Allen for being very persistent and relentless in actually sorting out that grant for me. And as I said, short and sweet, that is all. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks Ben. All right, so I'm just going to, Ben, I'll just mute your microphone. So if anyone's got a question, you should see there's a chat interface there, so you can just say yes, just type yes, and then what I'll do is I'll open up your microphone and just say who, maybe if you just say yes and then the person that you want to address the question to, and then I'll do the rest. Just while we're waiting for any questions to come up, one thing I think I will do, oh, here we go, Ellen. So, Ellen, I'll just see if I can unmute your microphone, Ellen, and I'm going to unmute Ben's microphone because this one's for you, Ben. Okay, Ellen.
G'day, Alan.
Are you there, Alan?
I like that question.
Sorry, it's like I wasn't unmuted from my end. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Ben, I was just wondering who in the that you saw during the Developers Day or heard from, who is doing really interesting things? Whose site should we be looking at?
I think the Mehmet's with his jQuery Primo plugin, basically, the missing API. If you have a look at that presentation, that was really interesting. If you're looking at doing any analytic or reporting type work based on your Primo install, it was really interesting and very comprehensive work that he's done, and I can't applaud him enough, and that's why I believe he won the best talk at the conference, at the developer day at least. And also I mentioned Macquarie Nishin, his API work with Maven and Java was good work to overcome any issues they've got with little small utilities for performing tasks to help out with the day-to-day operations was definitely worth a look. And yeah, I think those two were the standouts for me.
Thanks, Ben.
I hope that answers your questions.
Okay, I'm just going to mute microphones again, and just keeping an eye out to see if anyone else has got any questions. One thing I might do before we all leave is, because I know doing these presentations with the sound off and everyone, it can be a little bit disconcerting, so we might just, before everyone leaves, at the end of the questions, I'll unmute the microphones and maybe we can hear a little bit of a applause or something along those lines for our excellent presenters today. So I'll just wait a couple of minutes to see if anyone's got any more questions. All right, so no further questions. I'm just going to unmute all of our microphones, so be prepared. Let's see if this works. There we are. So yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to our three excellent speakers. Thank you for their time. I found it very useful and helpful. And also thank you to everyone that got on the call today, because I know we're all busy, but we do appreciate your support. So it's a big thank you from the ANZREG committee as well. And we'll obviously put this up on the website for people to see. One of us will send the link around. And also we'll hope to organise another webinar again soon. So thank you. So a round of applause for our presenters. Brilliant, thank you very much.
Thank you from me.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you everyone, and have a good day.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Thanks.